And good afternoon, producer Susan. How are you doing today?
I'm a little hot and sweaty. Jersey Joe, how are you?
I'm good. It's not too bad here yet. It's going to get there. How hot is it in Pennsylvania today?
It is currently 92 degrees.
92?
Yep.
Is your new air conditioning working?
Thank God. But I have to say my dog's a little miserable.
All
And
right.
so am I, quite frankly.
All right. Well, by the way, it's funny you should bring that up. We're gonna talk about today, of course, is June 17th, and we're gonna say guess what happens this week?
Summer arrived. So technically it's only spring. It should not be this hot in spring.
All right. So what happens on June 21st?
It is the equinox, so there'll be 12 hours of sunlight and 12 hours of daylight. Or sorry, 12 hours of darkness and 12 hours of light.
Right. It'll be the equinox. Okay. Um, and what else happens this week on Wednesday?
It's also Juneteenth on Wednesday.
The Juneteenth celebration, which celebrates what?
Uh, I should know this and I don't.
It was when the slaves in Texas were finally made aware, because back then there was no communication. That's finally
Yeah.
when the cavalry arrived in Texas and said the Civil War is over and the North has won and all you slaves are free. So that happened in June in Texas, and of course it didn't happen on the same day because they had to go, town by town in Texas.
Oh.
So it was the notification of the slaves in Texas that the war was over and President Lincoln had freed them all. So that's what Juneteenth celebrates. All right.
And how was your Father's Day?
It was good. My daughter came through in a pinch with a couple of cigars. I got some interesting targets to take to the shooting range with me. It was pretty good. Had a pretty good visit and ate some good food. Anyway, that was it was good being a father this weekend. All right, you want to hear what we're going to try to squeeze in today? Because man, we got a lot.
Yeah, what's on the agenda?
All right. Well, we all know who our buddy Thomas Sowell is, right? The
Yep, we've
author and
heard
yeah.
from him several times.
Well, today we're going to talk about on the his take on the historical fate of societies when non-workers in societies begin to outnumber the workers, which is somewhere where we're fast approaching. When I woke up this morning, I only had one stupidest thing I've heard all week, just a single contender, and then around noon today, I came up with a second, so I'll tell you what the two are that we're going to have to pick between. The first, I was going to give you some details on a carjacking that occurred in New York City over the weekend, where a car was taken that had a 6-month-old baby in a car seat in the back seat. And I'll tell you why that was an incredibly stupid thing, not on the part of the criminal, but because of the part of the parents. And the second one is about a plan by the City of Portland, Maine, to construct an affordable housing complex that will only accept applicants with specific sexual orientations. You'll have to decide the winner.
That's a little discriminatory.
Yeah, we'll get into the Federal Fair Housing Act. But the City of Portland has decided, yeah, we're gonna use taxpayer money to build a housing complex that will only accept people of a certain sexual persuasion. And we'll tell you all about that. And then speaking of Portland, we'll go to the other coast. We'll go to Portland, Oregon instead of Portland, Maine. And we'll tell you what people are doing with cases of free water provided them to the city of Portland. Hint, they aren't drinking or bathing with it. Don't know if you heard, our next one is President Trump has proposed making tipped income tax exempt. And we'll ask if our current tipping customs make any logical sense. We'll tell you about the number and size of Hamas tunnels that are being discovered by Israeli Defense Forces as they continue their push into the last major city in Gaza, which is Rafah, which sits on the border between Gaza and Egypt. I'll tell you about a little essay I wrote on income inequality, which is not the bad thing that many liberals make it out to be, and why it's actually a symptom of a healthy economy. We'll tell you why the Biden administration, or about a Biden administration decision to remove medical debt from credit reports and credit ratings, and why that decision will result in higher home mortgage rates for almost everybody. And finally, our taxpayer relief shot comes to us from Oakland, California, where 3 thugs picked the wrong homeowner to try and rob. And we've seen this before. three people show up, three people don't leave. All right. Um, anyway, can we fit this all in? I don't know,
Sounds like a lot.
yeah, I may have to leave anyway. So here's a quote from our friend, writer and author writer, author, and economist Thomas Sowell, who said, and he's still living, by the way. He said, "No society has ever thrived because it had a large and growing class of parasites living off those who produce." What do you think about that one?
Yeah. Yep.
And do you believe that we have a society where we have a larger and larger number of people growing?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. When you see these big public housing projects, that's all subsidized housing. It's people who don't have a job. They're simply
Mhm.
being provided with free housing by the city. They're living off food stamps and welfare, and unfortunately, they're not tearing down and shrinking the number of public housing projects. They're building more.
Mhm.
And of course,
And, and I believe, bad things happen to good people. And in those cases, yeah, we should, as a society, should help those people. But helping these people who are asking for help simply because they don't want to help themselves.
yeah, right. And that's where I think it's time to bring back things like workfare, even if it's public service. Like, okay, we're going to give you a yellow and orange vest, and you can pick up litter on the side of the highway. You don't need any job
Wasn't it
skills.
Maine? Didn't Maine have a program?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And you don't need a high school education, you don't need any special skills, but you're going to help make our cities look nicer. We're going to put you on trash patrol.
Mhm.
I mean, trust me, if I were a governor or a mayor, if I were a governor of a state, that's exactly what I would do. I mean, if I'm going to pay these people anyway, I might as well get something back for my money.
Mhm.
Uh, and just, have people who are not caregivers, who are physically able and who are not caregivers, um, pick up trash, remove graffiti, give them a pressure washer, and have them remove graffiti from different places. But again, so one more time, so no society has ever thrived because it had a large and growing class of parasites living off those who produce. And unfortunately, I see only growth in the number of people who are electing and deciding to live off society and not produce. So unfortunately, that's where we are. That's where we're going. I don't know what's going to take to reverse that trend, if it can be reversed, but I believe that's the path we're on. All right, you want to move on to the stupidest thing I've heard all week?
Yeah. What's the stupidest thing you heard this week?
Well, I got two. You need to pick. Our first is a contender. This was here in New York City. A couple had a minivan, and they had their 6-month-old in the back seat, and they went into a coffee shop to grab some coffee. And while they're in the coffee, and they left their 6-month-old in the back seat, in the car seat. While they're in the coffee shop, a guy comes along, jumps in the car, drives off. Now, let me tell you why it's stupid. This is the Bronx, New York. They parked the car with the engine running, the doors unlocked, and the keys in the ignition. I guess they wanted to leave the air conditioning running so that the child didn't get hot. But in New York City, you leave a running car with the keys in the ignition and the doors unlocked, parked at the curb. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm stunned. It took 10 minutes for the car to be car. And the guy who took it probably didn't even know that there was a baby in the back seat. He just sees a car running with the nobody sitting in it. Well, of course he's
Mhm.
going to jump in it and take off. So, by the way, yes, the carjacker got charged with, grand theft auto, maybe even kidnapping, but shouldn't the parents be charged with child endangerment?
Yeah. There's no excuse for this. I mean, first of all, you said it was a couple, so one of the parents could have gone in
Yeah,
and
one
gotten,
could have gone in and said, "What do you want? What kind of, you want a
and
muffin?" Yeah.
and I often will run into Dunkin' on my way to work, or if I have my dog in the car, and if it's a hot day like it is today, and I have a keyless car, I will take my fob and I will lock the door. The car's still running with the air conditioning on, but lock the door.
Right. But your
I
daughter,
get not wanting to take your baby out of the car seat because it's a hassle. But because you're just running in to get your coffee, I get that part. But gosh, lock your door.
but there were two of them.
There's two of them. Yeah. So that makes it worse.
And they didn't have one of these things where they could lock the doors and keep the fob with them. They literally had the keys hanging in the ignition.
Yeah.
So you got to be incredibly stupid. But here's our second contender, which I didn't learn about till about noon today. So this is from Portland, Maine, not Portland, Oregon. So, and I looked this up. The Federal Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination against people who seek to rent an apartment or buy a home based on their, and this is a quote, race, color, national origin, religion, sex, including gender identity and sexual orientation, familial status, or disability, which means that if a person who's gay or lesbian or homosexual wants to rent an apartment you're advertising, you can't turn them down based upon their sexual orientation. And we know this, right?
Yes.
So yeah, you cannot discriminate
Civil
based on,
Rights Act of 1964.
right. And also the Fair Housing Act, which was passed by Congress, which is kind of an adjunct, a spinoff of that. Anyways, and I've got a link to that, which you can put it, it's HUD, it goes into great detail. So what has the City of Portland, Maine just announced? Well, the City of Portland, Maine has announced that they will be using a combination of taxpayer funds and private donations to construct an affordable housing complex whose residency will be restricted to those applicants who are only those applicants who are part of the LGBTQ community. So in addition to being a blatant violation of the Federal Fair Housing Act, because it excludes straight people, which is a discrimination based on their sexual orientation, my question is this: how are they going to determine who does and doesn't qualify as a member of the
Yeah.
LGBT community? Will applicants have to submit a video showing themselves engaged in sex acts? Will people who are bisexual have to submit 2 videos? I mean, how are they, number one, besides being blatantly illegal, how are they going to determine if you walk up?
How do you prove that?
Yeah, I mean, if you apply and say, yeah, I'm bisexual, how are they going to say, no, you aren't?
Yeah.
You tell me. I mean, right, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and is the Q for queer?
Yes.
Okay. So how are they going to determine who is not an LGBTQ member? So which is more stupid, the couple that left their baby in the back seat of a running car in the Bronx, New York, or the City of Portland going to use taxpayer funds to build and build a housing complex that'll be restricted to LGBT
And this is
people?
another tough one. You got me last week and it was a tough decision. This is another one. There was absolutely no excuse for that couple to have left their baby
Yeah.
in the car, in a running car, while they went in to get coffee. And yeah, in the Portland, Maine, that there's clearly a violation of federal law.
I mean, doesn't the city of, well, besides, number one, doesn't the
And how do you prove it?
And how do you, so number one, I'm sure the city of Portland, Maine has a city attorney, number one. I'm sure they have an attorney who could have told them that. And then number two, did they think this thing through? If somebody says, yes, I'm bisexual, I want to rent an apartment, and by it's going to be low cost subsidized housing. If somebody says, yes, I'm bisexual, how are they going to say, no, you're not? I
Yeah.
mean, so in the case of the couple, it's just 2 people being stupid. This is a whole freaking city council being stupid. I'm
Yeah.
going to have to go with number
And,
2.
and these are elected officials that we've
And these are
elected.
elected officials. Yeah, and it's a group of elected officials. There's something like the collective wisdom of large groups. Well, I'm sure. Anyway, folks, if you have an opinion, is it the city of Portland, Maine, or the couple that left their baby in the back seat of a running car with the doors unlocked in the Bronx? You send me an email to joe@jerzeejoe.com and you let me know. All right. So let's go on to Portland, Oregon, on the other side of the country. So in Portland, the city of Portland had decided that they're going to give, on request, or maybe it's only once a week, a case of bottled water, 24 bottles of water to homeless people, free. So they can brush their teeth, drink, maybe even wash themselves with it. So, what do you think those homeless people in the city of Portland are doing with their bottled water?
I would hope they're staying hydrated.
Well, there's videos of them. You go on the internet, and I actually have a video. We'll put the link up. What they're doing as soon as they get their case, because a truck comes by, and you walk up to the truck, and then you stand at the back of the truck, and they hand you your case of water. as soon as the truck leaves, there's a video of, 3 or 4 of them standing there in the curb. They've got a shopping cart, and what they're doing is they're opening the bottles and pouring out the water, or in some cases, the guy's just stabbing them and letting the water run out. They're immediately draining the bottles, throwing the empties in the shopping cart, and they're doing that because in Portland, you have a 10-cent plastic bottle deposit fee. So they're immediately putting, I don't know what a case of bottled water costs these days. What's 24 bottles of water cost? 12?
Probably about $24, I think, about $1 a bottle.
Well, even if it was only 50 cents, it'd be 12, what, $12
Oh,
for
but
20.
yeah.
But so they're dumping immediately, dumping 12 to $24 worth of bottled water down the drain to collect $2.40 worth of bottle deposits. So, because you see them, they're collectively throwing their plastic bottles in the empty shopping cart. And I guess they all take it to whatever the recycling center or the supermarket. And I guess they split the proceeds. But that's what what homeless people in Portland, Oregon are doing with the bottled water, throwing the water away to collect the bottle fee. So,
Especially, this week that half the country's in a drought, half the country's, experiencing extreme heat this week. I just that's such a wasteful. Why not just
yeah.
not drink the water and save the bottles and then take it to the
Well,
recycle?
maybe they're not doing it this week. So this video is about 2 weeks old. In fact, I meant
But
to do this
still,
story.
regardless, like, why
Yeah.
not just drink the water, brush your teeth with it, and then take it to the, recycling center?
Nope, I guess yeah, but you're right. They could use the water at the end of the week, after they've used the water productively to, maybe, uh, again, drink it, brush their teeth, take a sponge bath or whatever they want to do. But no, they can't wait. They need that $2.40. I'd rather give them, rather than give them $24 worth of bottled water, I'd rather just give them a debit card and say, here, if you want to
Yeah.
use it for water, buy the water. If you want to use it for something else, but to me, it's just another inefficiency of government, another stupid idea, where they could just as soon give them an EBT card, with, $12, $24 on it. Anyway. Or give them a voucher, by the way. Well, no, if you gave
Yeah.
them the voucher, they get the water, they do the same thing. And just give them an EBT card and let them buy what they want, because clearly they don't need or want the water. Or have hose stations and give them big jugs, give them
Yeah.
these half.
That'd be the most cost effective and, environmentally friendly option.
Yep, just have a hose station where they can go, you can have them all over town, and just, here's a jug, without a deposit. Here's a jug. I've seen them and people come in the gym with these half-gallon jugs with a handle on them. And
Yeah.
just, they got a sip spout on them and whatnot. So, or even one of these little picnic cooler jugs. You've seen them, the little blue and white ones with the handle. Just,
Yeah.
just let them fill them up. Anyway. So that's Portland, Oregon. So it's Portland, Maine, Portland, Oregon. All right, so let's move on to tipping. So President Donald Trump last week proposed exempting tips from taxation, which of course is a political ploy. And without going into the pros and cons and pandering to waiters and waitresses and cashier and people who work in casinos, it brings this question about our custom of tipping and fairness. So if you and your significant other go to a place like Chili's or Applebee's for quick dinner, and the bill comes to $40, which is, $20 each, right? About typical. And you leave a 20% tip, that's $8.
Yep.
Now, instead of going to a Chili's or an Applebee's, say you decide to go to a really nice steakhouse, a really nice seafood restaurant, and the bill comes to $130. That's with, cocktails or bottled wine, and of course, they bring you that salad and, but that's not unusual. 65 bucks a head at a really nice, particularly, by the way, with taxes and all that's not unusual for two people to spend $60 to $65 a piece. So the bill comes to $130. Well, a $20 tip would be, a 20% tip would be $26, which is 325% of the $8 tip that you left at Chili's or Applebee's. So here's my question. Now, yes, at a steakhouse, the server's first bringing you a salad, and then the server has to take your salad plate away, and then they deliver the entree, and then maybe you get a cup of coffee. So yes, there's a little more work involved. But did the server in the steakhouse work 325% harder than the server in Chili's or Applebee's?
No, not, I mean, maybe a little bit more, but no.
No. So our custom of always using the same percentage, does that make any logical sense that you should tip 20% regardless of the value of the meal?
Yeah, you know, you bring up a really good point, but that's, I mean, I feel like that's how we've always done it. You know, you tip 20% at Chili's or Applebee's, you tip 20% at the, Rail Steakhouse.
Maybe it should be something, if your bill is less than $40, you tip 25%, not as a law, but just as a custom. And if the bill's more than 100, for two people, you tip, the bill's between 75 and 100, you tip 20, and if it's over 100, you tip 15%. It's an illogical custom that you tip
Yeah.
the same percentage regardless of the bill, because the the amount of effort on the part of the server does not go up linearly with the size of the dinner bill. So that just something to think about.
Yeah. Interesting thought. Yeah.
All right. Let's move on. No segue. I don't know if you've seen the pictures, but as you know, the Israeli Defense Forces are now making the last major city in Gaza is now Rafah, which is on the southern end of the Gaza Strip, right on the border with Egypt. And they've been pushing Hamas further and further south, and they've now kind of got them. Well, everybody thought they were cornered in Rafah. And what they've now discovered as they fight their way through Rafah, they're finding this network of tunnels, and not tunnels like where you can crawl through. These are tunnels you could drive a cargo van through. These E350 Econoline vans, like the electricians
Yeah.
and the plumbers. These are with ventilation. I mean, they almost look like railroad tunnels, and not just one. They've found a dozen of these truck-sized tunnels that connect Rafah with Egypt. Well, first of all, where a lot of the Hamas fighters have gone? They've gone right through the tunnels into Egypt to escape the Israeli Defense Forces.
Yeah.
But when you look at these tunnels, which they're in the process of destroying, this is how they were getting, despite all the blockades, and they had blockades on the ocean, to prevent ships from coming in. And well, guess what? They were simply driving under the border into Egypt, picking up their stuff from Iran, the missiles and the munitions and the explosives, and bringing them back underground through the tunnels. I mean, it looks like a subway tunnel.
Mm.
And producers, if you can put the picture up,
Yeah,
it's it,
absolutely.
it's stunning. And you look at this; it's stunning how well constructed and how incredibly large these tunnels are. Um, and again, Israel's in the process of not only uncovering these tunnels but blowing them up, so that once they do end this hostility, that they won't be able to bring in missiles and explosives and ammunition and guns through
Mhm.
these tunnels. All right, let's move on. Have you ever heard anybody rail on and on about MSNBC or about income inequality and how it's evil and how we have to work to end or reduce
Oh yeah. Yeah, oh
uh,
yeah.
income? Well, income inequality. They want you to believe it's um, it's evil and it has to be stamped out. Well, my position after looking at it is that it's not evil. It's actually a symptom of a very, very healthy economy. And all you have to do is look at places that don't have income inequality. Um, you know where they don't have income inequality? Cuba,
Yep.
North
Look
Korea,
at- Yeah, look at
Venezuela,
those places.
the Soviet Union before it collapsed,
Hmm.
Somalia. No, there's no income inequality. What you have is you have a handful of the ruling elite. And I say a handful, I'm talking, you know, 15 to 30 people, just, the very top of the government, the generals, you know, uh, and everybody else is equally poor. So the only place you don't have income inequality are these poverty-stricken countries where communism rules. Hang on, I have to fix something here. Um, so if you don't have income inequality, that means that you are living in universal poverty, and
Hmm.
that exists because of capitalism. So let me say it this way. The existence of income inequality means that you live and work in an economic system where hard work, innovation, creativity, and risk-taking are rewarded. And that reward, the potential to personally benefit from those skills and behaviors has resulted in things like, this is a short list: the telephone, the cell phone, the television, the personal computer, air conditioning, the household refrigerator, refrigerated trucks, internal combustion engine and the automatic transmission, airplanes and commercial air travel, software products like Windows, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, MRI machines, CAT scan machines, the cotton gin, the typewriter, the wheat combine, the artificial heart, artificial knees, hip, and shoulder joints, LASIX corrective eye surgery, dialysis machines, the microwave oven, and theme parks and rides like the roller coaster. Now, and I could go on, by the way, for half an hour with all of those things that have been invented in capitalist and developing capitalist countries. All of those products, devices, and services were invented by people and companies living in countries that have a capitalist economy that rewarded those companies and people for the years and time they invested and the enormous financial risks they took to develop those products, devices, and services. How many of those people and companies would have invested the man years of labor and risked financial ruin if the successful outcome of their efforts resulted in all of them still living in a state of equality with every other person residing in the country? The answer is obviously none. I mean, if you were Steve Jobs and Wozniak and you're developing the first, Apple computer, and when you got it up and running, the state of California said, "Well, thank you very much, guys. It's ours now. Here's a plaque." Do you think they would have worked all those nights in their garage and maxed out
No,
their credit?
there would not be any incentive.
Do you think Willis Carrier would have spent several years and mortgaged his house and borrowed from friends and family to invent the commercial air conditioning if he
No,
wasn't gonna own it?
no.
You think Disney would have spent all that money to develop theme parks? Um,
Nope.
if they weren't going to uh, be the beneficiaries of that. Uh, so number one, that's why when you look at the list of the 100 most important inventions of the 20th century, 99 out of the 100 have come out of capitalist economies. There's been no dialysis machines, there's been no CAT scan machines, um, no air conditioning systems invented in places like Russia, Somalia, or Cuba. It just doesn't happen. Now, how many of the now? But let's talk about the people uh, who didn't, who lacked. Some people just lack the skills, creativity, and ability, or motivation to succeed economically. There's some people they just, they're. I'm trying to come up with a word, but they just lack the skills, creativity, ability, or motivation to succeed. Has income inequality made their lives better or worse? Well, in the United States, even people living in what the US government defines as having poverty level household incomes and generally still live in homes with clean running water, indoor plumbing, electric lighting, central heat, a stove, at least one television, a telephone, free public education, and free medical care. And they benefit from all the medical devices and procedures invented in capitalist economies in the past 100 years. If you have, a medical condition, and you go to the hospital, they don't say, "Well, we're not going to use the MRI on you because you're poor. We're not going to do a CAT scan because you're poor." No, you get the benefit of all of those devices, even if you're poor. So you benefit from income inequality.
Mhm.
Now, and let me talk about how we define poor in this country. So I just said poor people, again, living in poverty, you get Section 8 housing, you get an Obama phone, you get heating assistance, you're living in a place with running water and flush toilets. By comparison, those people live in what we define as poverty level. They would be considered upper middle class in countries like Somalia, the Congo,
Yeah.
Bangladesh, Guatemala, Honduras, Yemen, Nigeria, Sudan, and North Korea. Now, those countries, equality is the norm. Now, it's impoverished equality, but that's where equality is the norm. So again, with a very small handful of those living in power and control the military, all those countries enjoy so-called equality, income equality, but everybody other than the ruling elite is equally poor, and they all suffer equally from lack of adequate nourishment, medical care, indoor plumbing, and in many cases, even electricity to light their homes and keep their food from spoiling. So is inequality a bad thing, or should be stamped out, or is it a sign of a healthy economy that benefits all who live under that economic umbrella?
Yeah, I don't think it's people really need to look at the definition and realize what that means.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, income inequality, you have people that make, 100 times more than other people, but
Mhm.
in a capitalist economy where people are rewarded for risk
Yeah.
taking, that is an inevitable result and a symptom of a healthy economy where
Mhm.
entrepreneurship, creativity, is rewarded. All right, we're running out of time, so I'm going to fly through this one more time. Medical debt. A lot of people, even with Obamacare, they wind up with big, $20,000 unpaid medical bill. And when you owe a hospital $20,000 for medical bills, the hospital sells that to a collection agency,
Mhm.
and that typically shows up on your credit report. Well, the Obama administration, through the Consumer Financial Protection Board, the CFPB, has issued a ruling that now forbids the credit reporting agencies from including medical debt on your credit report. And that's going to eliminate $49 billion in medical debt from appearing on the credit reports of up to 15 million Americans, which will raise their credit scores and making them easier for them to qualify for larger mortgages. So is that a bad thing? And how is it going to affect
It
you? Why?
is, because if you have that much medical debt that it's putting an impact on your ability to pay your bills,
Right. But
yeah, it
but
should be
how's
a
it
factor.
right? But how's it going to affect you if you're not one of those people?
Well, if somebody defaults, I
Right.
all these
Exactly.
bailouts.
All right. So here's how it's going to affect everybody else who doesn't have medical debt. So let's say you have that 20,000 in medical debt, um, and you weren't able to qualify for a mortgage or a low down payment mortgage because of that, and because it hurt you. Now all of a sudden it disappears, and now your credit score went up by 100 points. So you're now qualified for 5% down mortgage on a home that's at the limit of your debt servicing ability. Well, 6 months after you close on your new home, the collection agency gets a judgment against you for that unpaid debt. And as part of that judgment, they get to place a garnishment on your wages and put a lien on your home. Well, that garnishment on your wages is such that you can no longer afford to pay 100% of your mortgage payment on time every month, so that you will soon fall into default on your mortgage, and the bank will eventually have to foreclose on your home, with legal expenses and unpaid mortgage payments exceeding the 5% equity you had in that home to start with. So the bank takes an unrecoverable loss on that mortgage it issued to you, and that scenario gets repeated several thousand times. Well, guess what? Does a bank or a mortgage lender factor in the cost of defaults when setting mortgage rates? Well, of course
Probably.
they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if the default rate goes up because of undisclosed medical debt obligations, the rate they will have to charge all borrowers will have to increase, and to cover the cost of that increase. Same thing with credit card debt. When people default on credit cards, credit card companies have to raise their rates. You're going to see the same thing in mortgage. You might see an extra quarter or half a point on your mortgage rate just because uh, of this medical people buying homes that they won't be able to afford, with the burden of unreported medical debt hanging over their heads. All right, how much time we got?
Yeah, you have less than 5 minutes.
All right, real quick then, let's move on to our taxpayer lease shot, which comes to us from Oakland, California. And why do we call him taxpayer lease shot? I'll let the sheriff of Santa Rosa County, Florida, tell you. Here we go. Hang on.
Somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. Hopefully, you'll save the taxpayers money.
All right, so let's go to Oakland, California, where it's a guy outside of his house and a car pulls up with 3 people inside. Here we go.
Oakland Street tonight following reports from multiple witnesses of a deadly shooting. Neighbors telling KTVU they heard multiple gunshots. This all comes in the wake of a deadly weekend in Oakland where 3 teenagers were shot and killed in just the past 24 hours. Good evening. I'm Julie Hayner.
And I'm Alex Savage. Police are still at that scene tonight in East Oakland. This shooting happened just before 6 o'clock tonight near the intersection of 98th Avenue and Burr Street. Let's get straight out to KTVU's Zach Sauce, who's joining us now live from that scene with the latest developments. Zach, what are we learning?
Well, as you mentioned, an active investigation still underway here. So far, police have yet to release any information, but from what witnesses tell us, this appears to possibly have been a home robbery gone wrong. You can see police still have the street where this all apparently happened taped off. According to that witness, a homeowner apparently shooting and killing a suspect involved in that robbery. Now, we did see the coroner's office arrive here earlier this evening. The body of that apparent suspect shielded from view. A witness telling me it was around 6 this evening that he saw 3 people pull up in a white Infiniti, which you can see here in the video. A man in the car apparently hopping the homeowner's gate. And that is when the witness tells me he heard 2 gunshots ring out. He says he called police. And then moments later, he says he saw the same man, the apparent suspect, fall to the ground in front of that home, the homeowner standing nearby armed. And that is when.
And real quick, so what do you think happened to his two buddies in the car?
They ran away.
Well, let's
Drove
find
off.
One of the other suspects in the Infiniti apparently took off on foot, police arriving just minutes later. I spoke with 2 neighbors who heard those gunshots from up the block. They asked for their faces not to appear on camera.
Heard it happen, and I was like, dang.
Yeah, you don't want anything to happen to you, so you really kind of clean your house and kind of wait till it's over.
Then I saw the police and I was like, yeah, I do it.
Just the other day, somebody stole a car and left it right in front of our driveway.
So again, one person apparently dead from gunshot wounds, and according to witness accounts, involved in an apparent home robbery. Again, we have reached out to police and we'll update you when we hear back.
By the way, they call it home robbery gone wrong. I actually think that's how home robberies, when they go right, with the thug dead on the street.
When you stop them.
Yeah, you stop them. I think it's a home robbery gone right, by the way. So we can argue whether it was gone wrong or gone right. Anyway, I know we're almost out of time. So anything you want to add before I sign us off?
No, I heard one of our friends running for New Jersey governor, Bill Spadia, announced his race today.
Really? He's jumping into the race?
Yep. Yep. He
governor?
announced, yep. He's running for governor.
Well, I wish him luck. He's a former Marine, and I'm sure he's running as a Republican. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
wow, what a turnaround would that be if New Jersey has a Republican governor for the first time in 20 years?
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, so I want to thank everybody who listens to this podcast for giving up 30 minutes out of your busy day to listen to me ramble on about things I find of interest and important. If you want to see some of the materials and story links you heard me talk about today, producer Susan is going to put them up on the Jerzee Joe website at jerzee-joe.com, with Jersey being spelled J-E-R as in Robert, Z as in zebra, E-E, Jerzee Joe, jerzee-joe.com. If you want to send me an email with a comment, question, or your vote on the stupidest thing we heard all week, just send it to joe@jerzee-joe.com. And just remember to spell Jersey with an R and a Z and a double E. And with that, producer Susan, anything you want to add before we sign off and run out of time?
Stay cool, stay hydrated. It's going to be brutal out there this week.
You do the same. Talk to you next week. Take care.
All
Bye-bye.
right.